We've got a bit of a Q&A session for the advisory board. More specifically, we're going to bring, if we could, the speakers who've been on today, and it's your chance to pick up on any specific areas. If it is a question that's maybe to the outside advisory board, we're going to throw them into the pot as well. But if I can welcome these speakers back on, so that's Ranjan Bhattacharya, please, round of applause. Simon Zucchi, Rob McFun, Richie Clapson, and Susie Carter. We're going to drag you back up, because we've not had nearly enough of you.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Do you have a YouTube site, Ranjan? Do you do YouTube?
Funnily enough, I'm a small-time YouTuber.
Okay, good.
You want to have a look?
I want to have a look at that this evening.
New videos each and every week. Smash that bell icon.
So first question.
False to habit, sorry.
From,
I've got a question for Richie. If it's a different question, Oh, I'll ask somebody else's question. No, I've got a question for Richie. That deal is still on the market, the one in Luton. Yeah. Why didn't you have it?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I don't do development.
Richie, you're not in the line. You'd be outside of the shop.
Why? Because I don't do development.
It was better when you was over there.
Why? So I was asked a few times, people asked me in the break, so why didn't I do that, or do I still do development? And it came up, I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, so we do some what we call Academy Days, live deal workshops with our students, and we have a routine where basically you have to put your hand up if you're interested in a deal, because they bring deals to the room, so we don't have conflict of interest. And a student, maybe like yourself, bought a deal in, and I had to put my hand up and said, I'm looking at it. And they said, oh, okay, we're back off. I thought, that's wrong. If I'm here trying to train you, I can't be in competition with you. So I said to my business partner Ian, I said, we need to do something about this. We're going to make a decision, in my opinion. And actually, do I want to do development? What gets me up in the morning? I've been in and around construction sites all my life. Running a training business, well, I know you've done it for quite a while, Simon, but this is 3 years. I'm 3 years in, so I'm still in the honeymoon phase. I quite enjoy this. I like doing this. And I made that decision. I went, what do I want to do? Do I want to do that or do this? I don't want to be in conflict. So that's what I decided to do. And actually as well, you might recall I did say I retired 10 years ago. My mentor, who I go and see, Yorkshireman, who kicks my arse all down the road, often says to me, you've got too much on. I've now focused most of my life, 99% of my life, just running property CO, and I can probably tell you I've never been happier. So there's a long answer to a short question.
Brilliant, thank you.
No worries.
very good answer, though, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's
on the spot, that was good, wasn't it?
All about lifestyle at the same time.
He just said that he's practiced that all through the break.
Good priming there. Sarah?
Yeah, I've got a question for either Ranjan or Susie about the sort of uplift value you were talking about with commercial. You know, we're used to 75% loan to value, or, you know, more if we can get it for our residential properties. Is there a benchmark for commercial? Because I'm led to believe the loan to value might be slightly lower.
Listen, there's no benchmark of uplift. It all depends on what you're doing. But generally speaking, the loan to values that you'll achieve at the end will be a little bit lesser. You can get 70-75% on commercial in certain circumstances, but you tend to find the interest rates are higher and the terms are a little bit more onerous. It's best to go for 70%. But as I've said in my talk, if you aim for a 30% margin, then you should be able to refinance out with a minimum of cash invested. And the way of getting that 30% margin is to convert all that low-value commercial space into residential space. With shops and uppers, I'm a big fan of keeping the front part of the shop as a shop, because, you know, it's not that attractive living in the front of a shop. And you tend to find that Zone A commercial rents are pretty much bang on residential rents anyway. And when you actually right size a shop, the depth to width ratio and all of that, you actually find more tenants for it. So what I look at when I look at a commercial building is, how do I optimize the capital value and rental value of every square foot of space? And it's a different strategy for every square foot of space, depending on whether it's at the front, whether it's on the first floor, second floor, at the back, to get that uplift. So that's why there's no rule of thumb, as it were. every inch of space is different within that unit. Susie, do you want
Brilliant,
to
fantastic.
add anything?
I'm not sure. I think that you've covered everything, actually. Yes. I mean, it is. You're definitely looking at lower LTVs. So that's why I kind of say make sure that you go to your commercial broker before you buy the commercial. Just make sure that you know exactly what the lending will be on it.
Thank you.
Brilliant. There must be another question. We'll go to Gary first and then back to you.
Susie, when you spoke on my pin, you were a great advocate of dark kitchens. You never mentioned it today. Is that because of Deliveroo or?
No. I mean, it's a trend that's happening, and you can actually, you can do in industrial, especially kind of up north in various, cheaper industrial locations. You can put dark kitchens in there. I just generally was trying to do more of a generic presentation today about the kind of strategies, so that's why I didn't mention it. But it very much is, if you think about the trends for industrial, industrial property, there's a reason why industrial property is actually quite expensive these days, and that's because it absolutely ticks the box of some of the trends that are happening in the market. Self-storage, dark kitchens, cold storage, for vaccines and food. I know this is big stuff. I'm not suggesting we all go out and buy cold storage because, we're talking about big warehouses. Dark kitchens is one of them. There are opportunities for smaller investors in dark kitchens. It is quite an interesting market. You have to delve quite deeply. I'm making some quite good contacts at the moment, so if I can cover anything, I'll let you know.
Great stuff. We've got Waleed and then back to Regina.
I've just had a question say, what is a dark kitchen? Does everyone know what a dark kitchen is? Okay, a dark kitchen is where, like a Deliveroo or a food delivery company like Just Eat, or Wagamama's or Pizza Express, whatever. What they tend not to do, people like Deliveroo, they tend to have a big industrial unit where they have a number of kitchens within it. And so rather than kind of going to each kind of takeaway or each restaurant, they actually consolidate under one roof. And so therefore it's kind of, there's so many economies, that kind of it's cheaper space, there's economies of scale by having different kitchens in there, there's cheaper fit out costs, etc., etc. That's what a dark kitchen is.
There was me thinking it was Howden's Gloss Black.
Fantastic. Waleed.
Question for a newbie in property. What would be the best way to start investing in property when you don't have that much capital to start with? I know you mentioned like Richard Branson and how you don't have to know a lot. You can, find someone that can help you fund the developments and stuff. How would you go about doing all of that?
I can answer that. I think it's about finding deals with significant meat on the bone. And if you can master the art, the skills necessary to find decent deals, then the money will find you. And I think that's proven by Property Elevator. You just watch any episode of that and you see people with cracking deals, they come along and pitch them, and if the numbers are right, they get funding, they get funded. So if you lack funds or you want to get started, that's the thing, to learn how to source deals with meat on the bone, and then you'll be able to raise the money to back you.
Thank you.
In addition to Property Elevator, which is great, and I did the first series, but I wasn't invited back for the next one. I don't know what happened there, really, but still. A really simple thing to do is go to events like this, go to any training events, go to any networking events, and let people know you're finding good deals. Because there are people who go to those events who've got money, who want to learn how to do it. And when they learn how to do it, they think, oh my God, that's hard work. And they'd rather work with someone else who's got the energy and the knowledge to find great deals. So it does absolutely comes down to finding really good deals with enough profit. So you can either do a joint venture or pay someone a great rate of return. You've got to raise your profile. You've got to let people know what you're doing. Don't be afraid to go on social media and at the PIN meetings or other network meetings. Use the opportunity to stand up and introduce yourself and just get out there. Yep.
Fantastic. Oh, sorry. There we go. Sorry.
Thank you. Just before I ask my question, William, I run the Essex PIN meeting, and that's the third Tuesday of every month, and that's very, very close to you. I don't know if... Yeah? You? It's really close to you, so I host the Essex PIN meeting, so you're more than welcome to come along. Our last one of the year was yesterday, actually, so we won't be back now until January, but you're lucky because it's the first one in person since March 2020. So, yeah, please come along because it'd be really, really good for you. My question was for Rob McFun. So something I really took away from your presentation was the soften. So where you broke it down, smile, open gesture, forward lean. Can you just explain what you mean by open gesture? Because everything else I do daily with kind of my job. Yeah, so what just to elaborate on that, yeah. So what do you...
It combines with a forward lean, really, in a way, and obviously Richie sort of took the mickey to a degree, but that's an open gesture. So yeah, it is just walking forward and being sort of open about it, and sort of I've got to be careful. I was going to say, as an ex-police officer, you're exposing yourself. So, and that's where I get all my deals.
Comedy's getting better.
Yeah, I rest my case, Your Honour. It's that. Look, I'm walking in confidently. I know this is going to sound so basic, but it's stand up straight. It is walk in with confidence. Outside the shop, if you're not feeling confident, take some deep breaths. Really just build yourself up, take some deep breaths, go in and basically walk in there like almost you own the place, but without being cocky or overconfident. So open gestures is that really. And really what you're saying is you be open with me. And that eye contact like you're giving me now is vital, is really important. The one I didn't quite elaborate on touch is you have to be careful because there are cultural differences with touch. And in fact, what happens now is I tend to make I like humour. So one of the things I do is I try and make a joke of, well, put the hand out, but I'm like, do we fist bump, do we elbow? You can make it actually into a bit of a joke now about what you're going to do. And that immediately breaks the ice. Because often vendors and people are actually just as nervous as you. You don't realise that, but they don't know what's coming next either. So if you're the one who can break that ice a bit down, then that's really helpful. Does that answer your question?
It does. Perfectly, thank you.
Great question. We've got Phil just over to the side and then back. Oh, sorry, Damien, apologies, back to you afterwards.
Susie, so you talked about in your commercial presentation. You don't have to stand up for me, by the way. You can stay down.
Oh, I'm ready.
Very
ready.
You talked about purpose-built premises, offices, and so on. I'm looking at one at the moment, which is a purpose-built unit, but my concern is it is a purpose-built office for about 20 to 24 people. What are your sort of market insights at the minute for offices? Because I don't listen to the news much anyway, but the deal is significantly discounted, 70% below the last sales price, and in terms of the lease that's being paid now, but it's owner occupied. He's sold his business and he's moving out. So it's more of a specific question on that, but also in terms of purpose-built offices as a general strategy.
Okay, so offices is interesting because during COVID, I think we all wondered what the hell was happening to offices. And I think that it's quite clear from a couple of indicators that actually the market thinks that offices are going to be okay. The first one is that the big property companies, pension funds are piling into regional offices at the moment. Now, I know they're prime offices, but, they are. Second, there is continuing, and there was pre-COVID, but there is continuing to be more and more permitted development conversion to residential. So in some locations, the supply-demand balance has definitely kind of reduced the supply. of offices, and therefore some rents are going up, or there's more demand for offices. I mean, have you spoken to commercial agents about what's happening in the office market in the particular area that you're looking at?
They're reasonably optimistic, but the vendor was quite kind in allowing us to secure it under an option and giving us the keys to actually then look at the rental potential, so we could actually get it advertised. And we're not getting that many viewings, if I'm honest with you. And we're going to, probably because we've not bought it yet, we've gone, let's see how much we can get for it first. So we will come down a little bit and try and negotiate. But
and how many floors is it?
It's 2 floors.
Okay, so you could look at doing it floor by floor, letting it floor by floor, not 4 by 4, or you could look at the potential of putting a co-working space in there, which there is a lot of demand for at the moment, kind of, small offices in it. And obviously, if we're looking at our multiple exits, ultimately, I guess there is a conversion to residential.
It is purpose office built. It's in an office.
It's an office park,
It's 24/7 secure
office.
Oh, right,
I see. Okay, yeah. So that's not relevant. So, have you got a commercial agent letting it on your behalf?
Yeah. Well, yes. Although I think I've been a bit naive in terms of just going off. Somebody recommended this one person that they knew, so I'm going to have to go and ask around. I think a bit.
Sometimes changing agent can just completely turn the dial for you. So I would do a bit of a beauty parade of some local office agents, kind of that way you pump them for lots of information, so you get lots of freebie information. Then you can work out kind of who's the best person to let it for you.
Okay, cool.
Well. Can I just chip in a little bit on the office thing? I think the office market has changed, and if you're looking at purpose-built offices, because I guess it's in a business park, you can't converting it to residential is not an option.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not an option, and it's relatively small, and that particular sector of small offices is a little bit stuffed right now, because a lot of those people tend to want to move into serviced office buildings, and in particular what they call grade A type of office space. Where there's more communal facilities and that kind of stuff. Because the big problem with the old way of leasing offices is that you take a 5 or 10-year FRI lease, and on day one, it's either the space you're renting is either too small for your business or too big for your business. And the smaller businesses, they tend to want that flexibility of a 12-month license agreement. So, there are multiple sort of subsectors of the office market, and I think that particular one of the smallish, what you would normally do as a 5-year FRI lease, is very challenging right now in most areas.
Grant. We had Damien.
Thanks very much. So my question is, how do you determine what makes a good commercial tenant? And just to put that into context, I was speaking to one of the delegates at lunch today who said they've got commercial property rented out to Costa Coffee, who at the start of the pandemic stopped paying rent for 12 months, and at the end of that period went into a CVA, a creditors voluntary arrangement, and are paying 30p in the pound on those arrears.
I'm sure that's Costa, and not Cafe Nero. Because Costa
Cafe Nero.
Yeah.
And my question is, how do the banks and the valuers respond to that? Do they take into account a company's track record in payment or non-payment of rents?
It is a hammering situation with certain of these big corporates who have been playing a very, very funny game. And I've always said that the best commercial my strategy for looking at commercial tenants, I do a lot of commercial buy-to-let, is always I haven't really favoured these large corporates. It has been franchisees, it has been smaller businesses, and particular smaller businesses where the proprietor is personally guaranteeing the lease. So most of our commercial properties are let out to the business, but also party to the lease is the proprietor of that business who is guaranteeing it. Now, when I look at our residential portfolio, our residential tenants are not UK homeowners, whereas our bulk of our commercial properties have a UK homeowner on the lease. So there's a massive difference between people that have rented to some of these big corporates. You know, it's not just Cafe Nero, people like Boots. I mean, the naughty people are well known, but there's some people that are also well known for being good guys. Now, Greggs, for example, we've got a few Greggs, they've been good guys. Domino Pizzas, they've been good guys. There are a whole bunch of guys that have been really, really good during the pandemic. They've received money and they've paid up. And as a result, the values of those properties, particularly when they come up for sale at auction, are a little bit more, because the market knows that those people have been good corporate pairs. I mean, the banks in particular, they've been good, HSBCs, all of that. They haven't. There have been some naughty people. And the worst offenders are particularly the retail outlets, which have been hammered by internet sales. And the worst offenders are the ones where in stores that cannot be repurposed. That's the other thing I've found. Because our collections in during COVID for commercials have been pretty much near 100%. We did have a couple of wobbles, but they've all been recovered now. And that's because I've only bought commercial properties which can be repurposed. So my attitude to buying commercial property is, I'm only going to buy something if I'm in a better position if it's vacant. You know, we bought a Boots building recently, just a couple of months ago. It's only got 4 years left on the lease, but we've bought that because we know if Boots move out, we're actually in a better position having that vacant because of Class MA and the situation of the property and all of that. So when you've got repurposable property, you're in a very, very strong position. Most of the people that suffered were the big pension funds that own massive shopping centres with all these retail units, Topshop and all of that within them. And it's how do you repurpose an into shopping centre? But if I've got a William Hill unit, you know, it's quite easy to see how I can repurpose that. So repurposability and having a tenant, a sort of actual person's name on the hook, has been fundamental to making sure that your collections have been good.
Perfect. I was going to say, Susie.
I think the temptation is always to chase the yield, though, isn't it? To get your higher valuation. So you want a blue chip in there.
Yeah. So I think, I agree with all that. I think just something else to add to that. I mean, as I said during my talk, I genuinely don't know who out of the blue chips are. I mean, I do know. But, you know, there are some that I know are kind of dark horses that actually their balance sheets aren't great. You know, believe it or not, someone like Boots is actually not great at the moment. You know, they've not been paying their rent, etc. So you just absolutely have to check it to the nth degree, because if you don't, your lenders will. Your lenders will be doing all the checks and balances, and they will adjust their risk appetite accordingly. So as Ranjan said, it's not always best at the moment to have a big brand or a big name. Now, obviously, all commercial property isn't just retail. So there's lots of other types of commercial property, but the same rule applies, really. You know, you just need to make sure, see what the effect of COVID has been on that particular tenant and do your checks and balances. And then you can put things in place to protect you, like, I mean, it depends on the size of the tenant, but you can put guarantees or rent deposits or whatever else it might be.
Fabulous. Oh, we've got Inez and then Nick. Thank you. Apologies.
Yeah, one for Ranjan and Susie. On that note, we have an empty building currently in Andover, which was a restaurant. And obviously, yeah, I needed to kick the agent even to remind them after September of last year that it was Class E and it wasn't A1, A3, A5 anymore. Hey-ho. That was because I come on your course. Thank you. It's a difficult area, and we've been struggling. Now we've got a prospective tenant. There are 3 guys who have got extensive experience in hotelling and chefing, a lot of training. Their CVs are excellent. They've got something else up and running, which seems to be going quite well. This is a new kind of venture for them, and therefore they've only got 1 year of track record. The figures on that particular location look pretty good. They are proposing to spend quite a lot of money on the fit out, somewhere between 80 and 100 grand. I don't like giving large periods of rent free away at the beginning. I'd much rather do half rent and get some cash flow in. So in fact, we've agreed, the heads of terms are nearly agreed, but obviously in terms of doing a credit check on them, there's just nothing to check. They also can't really afford a huge rent deposit because they want to put the money into the fit out. And I've suggested to the agent, well, look, first of all, we need to know, just from an anti-money laundering perspective, where the 80 to 100K is coming from. But also, we should do individual credit checks on them. Presumably, would you advise, though, we should have a personal guarantee from them on their...
Based on what you've told me, I would want to do that deal with a personal guarantee from the proprietor. I mean, sometimes you get these companies who... you see, commercial property can be a minefield. You've got people like, McDonald's and Subway spring to mind. So what they do is they set up a properties company, and they rent those properties off the landlords, and then that rents the properties to the trading business. So your tenant is never the trading business. And there have been, there was one of these payday loan shops, Check Centre, recently. They did that operation. So they folded the property company, and the trading business carried on, basically. So you've got to look at, and the other tactic is, of course, to set up a separate vehicle for each unit that they take on and limit the liability in that. So that's why you've got to kind of come up with a way to pierce through all of that and get some... I wouldn't be interested in where the fit-out money is coming from. I'm much more interested that someone's on the hook as a guarantor for that lease, and then you'll be safe. I talk to agents all the time, and one of the agents I was chatting to last week, because I was looking at a site, and I was just trying to find out, what the interest level was. It was a restaurant, and he was telling me that they're getting a lot of interest in that site, and the landlord has rejected some of the big players who are coming back into the market now, and they've favoured a smaller chain of 3 restaurants where there's a guarantee in it, simply for this reason.
And the guarantee would be what, against their own house or something like that?
Well, what I would do is, the proprietor of the company is Frank Smith. They will have a home residential address, land registry search, do they own the property, and that will do pretty much. You've pretty much got much better guarantee than you have with most residential tenants.
And what does the guarantee...
And credit search and all of that.
What does the guarantee actually cover? I mean, suppose, let's say, you've got a 5-year lease with rent of, I don't know, 25 grand.
It means they're ultimately on the hook personally, and they don't want to lose their credit. We did a situation just a few years ago. It's exactly what Susie was saying. We kitted out a shop as an estate agency. All the trendy, put in all the furniture, glass partitions, just made it as a ready-to-go high street agency. We advertised it in the Negotiator and the trade magazines so that an estate agent could come in and rent that unit from us. And all they had, we even had on the wall the map of the area, so that all they had to do was put their branding at the top. They had nothing to do, desks, everything was in there. We achieved the highest rent for Zone A space in that parade. So we set a new benchmark for the maximum ceiling rent. And the reason we did that is we have other shops in the parade. So when those come up for rent reviews, we have set a new maximum rent in the area, but no one really knows the underlying details of how we did it. So we let it to this estate agent chain at the top of the market. They had 4 directors as partners who were all guarantors of this lease, and then the sort of estate agency business, within a couple of years, they had to close down some staff, lay some people off and all of that. But they were personally liable. So they personally paid the rent. And it was up to them to sublease it for the remainder of the term, which they did. They managed to get a charity shop in, and they're taking it for the remainder of the 10 years. So you don't have to worry if you've got guarantors who cannot afford to go bust just for the sake of a rent on one unit. That's a short answer. That's a long answer, actually.
Fantastic. Very last question to Nick.
Thank you for the day. It's been great. It's been amazing. I guess between you, you've got, sort of including Richie, about 1,000 years of experience. And I'm just thinking that we all leave the room here, we all start doing the paperwork and we get sourcing deals and all the rest of it. There'll be a million questions. What's the process? I know I talked to Guy a little bit over lunch, but just in terms of how we can share knowledge and how we can tap into your knowledge further, and we've already done some courses and without doing another course, but what's the process that we can all kind of combine and develop together? And how does it work?
Shall I take that one? Thank you very much. The very key aspect of this environment is a biannual activity that we will all get together. The real key though, Nick, and it's a fantastic question to finish on, I couldn't have asked for anyone to say that better, I'll put the check in the post. Use the UKPA network group. That is a closed environment. It is specifically for the negotiators. It's your opportunity to ask questions, and there's no such thing as a silly question because we're all at very different levels. The things I think we've all learned today from the fantastic speakers has just been eye-opening. So share that knowledge. Use other people's experiences rather than spending your money, time, and energy on making mistakes. And we will support that not only through the UKPA network group, but the monthly webinars. The advisory board are very much for the founders to plug into, and then that will trickle down because obviously as much as I'm sure you'd love to connect with everyone and go and have a beer and a coffee, it's 55 people in a room. So we need to be as respectful of everyone's time and also feed back that information as efficiently as possible. Does that answer the question? But hey, use that UKPA network group. It's absolutely critical, and I'm very encouraged that people are doing it, people are introducing themselves, but from here on in, let's use that as a real way to share and go better together. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, please give an enormous round of applause to our speakers, Ranjan, Simon, Rob McFun, Susie Carter, and of course, Richie Papson.